You are listening to Leadership ReImagined, a White Horse Leadership podcast. For more resources, prayers, or to connect with us on social media, you can visit our website or download the White Horse Leadership app. You can find the direct link to both in our show notes. And if this show encourages you and strengthens your leadership, please consider subscribing and leaving a quick review. It takes just a few minutes and helps us expand our reach to new leaders. Thank you for listening. Well, welcome back to Leadership ReImagined. I'm Audra Haney, and I'm here with Dr. Rick Dunn.
Here we are.
We've made it. Not all the way, but we're close.
We're close, and I love this episode, so I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I think what I'm so excited about when it comes to this episode is we've done a lot of the inner work. Mm-hmm. We've talked about the principles. We're dealing with our heart issues. We're dealing with our posture before the Father. Mm-hmm. And in the next couple of episodes, we really get to have a lot of fun and talk about what that looks like outwardly in our leadership. So tell us about today's principle.
Sure. And I'm just going to make a comment on that. I was speaking with some leaders this morning about how the learning of surrender and move, right? So you're so accurate in that. Been a lot of surrender now. How do we move out of that posture very assertively and strongly, but from that posture? So the principle we want to look at today for Leadership ReImagined in this Leadership Reframed season is humility, curiosity, and empathy are the currency of redemptive leadership. It's what we step into, it's what we spend, it's how we invest so that we can build trust, resolve conflict, and reflect Christ in our relationships with the people we serve and lead.
I love that. That's powerful in and of itself. But as I was kind of looking through this principle, I would love to break down each word,
sure,
kind of how you would define them, because I think words can become very comfortable and familiar to us, but I'd love to kind of define these words for
Absolutely. And I'm going to try to get at them like quickly, and then I'm sure we'll unpack as we go. Humility, it's fascinating to me. It's one thing that it's inescapable. Like it's not like Jesus was vague, or there's a lot of application here. There's a lot of wonder what he meant. If you were to say lead like Jesus, there's a lot of questions about, well, how would you be a CEO? How would you be a pastor overseeing a department in a church? Or how would you lead an organization, right? But with humility, there's just nothing. He just said it straight up. He said, this is how we're going to be. The last shall be first. The first shall be last. Let's become like children. We're not going to be like the Gentiles. We're not going to be like the Pharisees. We're going to serve out of love. So humility is an expression of inner security in who we are with the Father, who he's made us to be, and we right-size ourselves. We are the children of God by grace. We have these incredible gifts, these kingdom gifts that we steward. We don't own them, we steward them. We consider others with great preferential treatment, not to our own detriment. That's one of the misunderstandings of humility. It's like somehow I diminish myself. Diminishing yourself is not humility. That's actually the antithesis of humility, because diminishing yourself means I'm going to be God of naming myself. Humility is God has created me. He's named me. I'm surrendered to his purposes for these gifts, and I'm going to offer these gifts with my whole heart, but with my hands open, because I'm surrendered, and I'm like, I'm not powering over you, I'm not powering against you, but I am moving toward you.
That's so good. How about empathy?
Yeah, so empathy, and we'll notice here, out of humility, empathy, and curiosity, it's a recentering, right? It's not that we practice our mindfulness and surrender in relationship with God and ourselves, but here we're being very mindful of the other person. And sympathy is, man, I feel bad about that. I'm so sorry. It's just a powerful, powerful part of our relationships. Empathy is and I think this has to be Spirit enabled. I don't think we should just try to do this on our own. I think we actually ask the Holy Spirit to help us see what we can't see.
That's good.
We talk about seeing what we don't see in ourselves, knowing what we don't know ourselves. Well, that's what we want to do in that person. But empathy is when we're actually experiencing, as much as possible, being in their place, seeing with their eyes, feeling with their feelings, knowing with their knowing. Does that mean that we 100% embrace the reality of that? What that person? Maybe not. Maybe we say, I think your definition of reality is way off. But we have empathy for how maybe that person got to that place, or what helped create that. And so I'm coming from the perspective of what would it be like to be you in this moment with this particular thought or concern.
Well, and I think almost instantly the temptation of defensiveness and combativeness that melts away with the empathy.
Yes, and if you do any kind of like psychological study on fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that trauma response triggering, empathy is the very thing that goes lowers that when a person can't lower it themselves.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate reframe. We've talked about all of this reframing in ourselves, but this, I think, the empathy is the ultimate reframe for other people.
Absolutely, and we'll do curiosity in a moment, but let me just say this: like that is the nature of the incarnation. That is the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That is the exalted Christ who sits on a throne of grace and understands exactly what it feels like to be in the place that we're in. So it's very much a practicing of Christ.
So good. Okay, tell us about curiosity.
Yeah. So we've talked about being curious about ourselves and who we are. Curiosity is, I go in with a set of assumptions, but I hold those with humility, and I practice empathy, and I'm curious to know and learn what I don't yet know. Audra, leadership sometimes is just, as I know you've experienced, is hard conversations.
Yes.
It's saying things
hard decisions.
Hard decisions. Saying things to people you would, like, this is not going to be comfortable. Right. Making a decision that you know the person, you know the decision, you're convinced through the Spirit of God and all the counsel you've gotten, it's the right decision to make. But that person's not going to hear it, feel it, see it in that way. Yeah. So curiosity is just trying to understand as much as I can about what the whole situation is, what the person's going through, we talked about empathy, but just their environment, their thinking patterns, and with humility and empathy and curiosity, I'm literally coming alongside a person and being with them and leading. And we're still going to lead, but we're going to, as best we can. Now, sometimes will people not want to be with you in that? 100%, but that's not our responsibility. Yeah, it's not, our job is not to cause them to be with us. Our role is to be with them, with the Spirit, lead, and then whatever happens from there, that's actually not our responsibility.
One of my favorite phrases that my husband has, I think he walks through conflict with these three things really well.
I would agree. I would agree, Corey.
I admire him in this area a lot. And where I could tend to be, that 8 comes out and I can be more combative or defensive. I really admire him in this area. But one of my favorite phrases he says is, their response is not my responsibility. The way I approach it is my responsibility.
Yeah. And it can feel, we use humility, empathy, curiosity, it can feel like I'm being passive, I'm being weak. I mean, it's not that, it's the greatest strength we can offer. Because what we're doing in that is like, hey, I don't need anything from you. I am secure. The Lord has, and no one's perfect at this, but we've worked through the place. I'm just not anxiously trying to get you somewhere, make a decision, make a response. I'm literally able just to be present with you and the Father and myself and lead from that. And while, again, we don't get to control the responses, the opportunity for this to be healthy and redemptive in everyone's life is so much greater when we practice this.
Oh, yeah. And I was even reflecting on how when we surrender or engage in these principles, how it actually pours back into our inner work as well. When I'm curious about someone else, when I learn more about their story, when I walk into something with humility rather than pride, I'm always learning more about myself.
I'm so glad you said that. You're 100% right. And you're recognizing things, and you're recognizing where you're anxious, and you're recognizing where you don't actually want to offer empathy to that person. You want to squash them. Like, maybe that's just me. But you start that. But here's the other thing: is that it really ties into our first principle that leadership is about work, is an act of worship. When we offer humility and empathy and curiosity out of a secure place, it is an act of worshiping our God as saying, "You're enough. You're enough."
Yeah, and we talked through this just for me personally, some things I was walking through, and I think there was a moment where I could have engaged with defensiveness or these principles, and the thought I had was like, I could let this conflict make me better or bitter. And there is pain either way.
That's
it can be very painful.
That is so true.
To be humble and have the empathy or try to be curious about something that's hurtful. But I think you have to choose your heart in this, I think.
And, here's the reality. Sometimes people are going to weaponize that against you. They're not going to come back. They're going to turn on you and be, and again, but that's for the Lord. I'm not responsible for that. But again, it recenters things around the work that God's doing with that person. And I'm just trying to participate the best way I know how, and I can, and release that. And leadership, leading fully engaged, assertively with your whole heart, and yet surrendered in the outcomes, is where the freedom is. It's where the power is. It's where the life is. And to your point, it's where the redemption is in our lives and the lives of other people.
I would think longevity too. Yeah.
That is so true. Okay, so now that you brought that up, right, that's a great point. Yeah. Longevity and legacy. Mm-hmm. Longevity in that you don't get exhausted, worn out, put all this on yourself, burned out. Mm-hmm. But legacy, I genuinely believe that, our leaders who are listening, watching in their 30s and 40s and 50s, like, you don't think about your legacy the way someone my age, 64, thinks about it. But you're building it right now. And I watch people, Audra, in the latter quarter of their lives or the latter season of their leadership. And I believe, after my 40 years of doing these things in leadership, I'm very convinced that what you see in those mid to late 60s, if you're given life for that, is the fruit of whether or not we practice these things. And that can be a wonderful fruit and a wonderful legacy, or it can, too often, I fear, doesn't end well. And it's because these things weren't practiced all along.
Yeah, and I was kind of meditating on, we hear maybe too often stories of leaders that were really charismatic, leading on a high level. Right. And I think where as a church, maybe we failed is then there will be some kind of fall or some kind of crisis, and then we say, you should do some inner work.
Yeah, that's right.
To rehabilitate, to get back to where you were leading. Yeah. Whereas what I love about how you reverse engineer this is, let's do the hard work. So we are whole as we lead and as we build a legacy.
100%. And I think humility, empathy, and curiosity to others is a huge part of making those relationships happen.
That's good. I love the word currency.
Yeah.
That's powerful wording. Mm-hmm. So why do you consider these currency, and what are we buying with the currency?
I think about, a long time ago, Audra, they had things called traveler's checks. Mm-hmm. Do you know what a traveler's check is?
Oh, yes, I do, Rick.
Whoa, wow. I'm really impressed. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't remember.
I'm from the 1900s.
That's a great line. Sounds so far ago.
It
right?
does, yeah.
But, now it's a credit card. It's tap and anywhere, mostly in the world. But, you had to have traveler's checks, and you go to your bank. If someone doesn't know what they were, you go to the bank and you buy the traveler's checks. And that gave you currency wherever you went. You could move into any culture, in any place, any economy, and you didn't have to necessarily change it into the currency. So, and I'm sure that was limited, but all the countries I ever went to back then, you used that. And one of the and I'll say that. So I think of it like what moves into any environment, any culture, any relationship, any situation. This is something that allows you to be in a healthy exchange and a healthy engagement to participate, right? Into the buying metaphor would be that we're inviting into relationship, and that's what we're really after. I'll also use an example. I went to Hungary right after the Iron Curtain fell in the early 90s. I got on a train, and the guy brought me the bill, and it was very the communism had just left. It was a very hostile, and they were not happy to have Americans. That was a negative environment. There was just a lot going on in that particular area we were in Hungary. I was on the train, and the guy sent me the bill, and I thought of the Hungarian currency, and I thought that he just charged me $400 for lunch, and it was actually 40. But I'm like, they're getting super aggressive and all these kinds of things because we are disagreeing on
the price
and the currency. And for me, humility, empathy, and curiosity is like, hey, I'm meeting you. I'm engaging where you are. I'm coming to you in your place, and I'm in the currency of the things that are actually possible for you to engage. and I'm setting the terms of engagement and inviting you into that place. And every human being has the opportunity when humility, empathy, and curiosity towards them, it actually exposes what's in their heart.
That's really good.
Yeah. And so they respond, and that opportunity is there. But if they don't, I would say you didn't create distrust, you exposed distrust.
That's good. I think for me, this is a little bit easier to offer up when I feel like maybe someone's criticizing just the decision or just the direction. How does a leader engage in this when you feel like they're attacking character?
Yes. So this is where the difference in passivity and assertiveness and true humility and false humility, it's the wanting to help me understand how that would cause you to question my character. Like, help me understand that, because it's hard for me to register. It's hard for me to understand how now you're questioning my integrity over this. So I want to understand that. It may require saying, I'm not and I've done this. I'm certainly not perfect. And here's two things out of this that I will own. The humility to own my part.
And there's usually something we could have done better or differently.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And that's the great mythology that leaders can carry, or people care about leaders. Well, you're supposed to get it right all the time. No.
There's a lot of failing forward in leadership.
Always. And we, my mindset, and I think you have this too, is that failing forward is redemptive work. And so I want to, if I have something to own, I want to own that, because that's a part of my redemptive work. But it's not helpful for me to own what I didn't. That's not humility.
That's good.
That's fear. That's false humility, and it's a misuse of empathy. And it's so we don't want to say we don't want to be defensive. We don't want to be aggressive. We want to be assertive in the sense of like, here's this. I can remember being confronted very much on my character, like super attacked on my character. And I said, I'm going to need some time for this, because I knew what was going to come out of my mouth was not good. So I said, I just need some time. And I came back and I said, on these 2 points, I need to grow, and I receive that, and I ask your forgiveness. On these points, I cannot agree with your assessment at all. And if I'm wrong, I'm willing to hear from other people, but there's nothing in this scenario that I believe gives you the right to make that accusation.
That's good. How can a leader prepare if they know they're going in the boxing ring?
Yeah.
Or I would love 2 scenarios. Like, I know I have this upcoming meeting.
Right.
It's going to be combative.
Right.
Or maybe in the moment where you feel like, man, I got sideswiped by something.
Right. Well,
what's your wisdom
upcoming meetings, write it down. Write down what you're going to say, and get a trusted friend, mentor, coach, spouse, somebody, and go say, here's how I'm thinking about responding. What do you hear in this? And I've never done that without them saying, hey, I'd tweak this a little bit.
So good.
I did it recently. I talked to friends. I said, I'm kind of doing this. And I'm like, he said, well, I think that feels defensive. I think this would be more what I think your intent to say is more this. And that was just so helpful to go in. And in a really tense situation, Audra, I will say to the person, I'm here to be with you, and I want to hear, and I care about what you say, but I care so much that I've actually prepared a couple of things, because this is so important to me that I represent what's really in my heart. And so sometimes I'll actually just say, I'm going to read a couple of sentences to you, and I want to hear what you think about it. But I'll connect with them first. I won't go in and say, I have a letter to read you, and
Right.
Because you've got to watch in yourself, what's my posture, what's going on here. And the 2 things that leaders are most likely to do, always passive aggressive instead of assertive. And passive is you go in and you just kind of, you don't respond to things, you kind of let things sit. And aggressive is you just like, especially as a leader, you just dominate them. You just power over them. We've all of us have had that happen at some point. Maybe we've done it at some point. But the sort of thing is like, I'm just going to engage you, and I do want to know, how do you feel about this? What do you think about what I'm saying? So the writing it down, the preparing of the heart, and the prayer. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Going back to our earlier principles, Father, I want to be secure in you. I don't want to lead out of a place of trying to gain control or manipulate. And here's one order: I don't want to lead so that I just feel less anxious.
That's good.
I want to deal with my anxiety, and I have been in meetings where I've said, I'm super anxious about this because there's so much on the line.
Right. That's great. right.
It's
humble.
It is, but it's real. And so I invite them to that reality. So I think really bringing yourself in, not playing a role, but being a person who stewards a role, right? And in the thing where you're like, it just kind of comes at you, is so important in that moment. Those words that are about to happen are so important. The least you need to do is pause.
Absolutely.
The least you need to do is like, I just need a minute to think about what you've said and think about how I want to respond to that. I'm feeling really defensive and angry right now, and I don't want that to be our relationship. So I'm going to take a moment or I'm going to take a day, or I'm going to need some time. See how that's not like, it's not to say I'm feeling defensive and angry right now. And I don't want that to be what this is about. Healthy boundaries. If someone says I have had times where I've had to say, I do not believe that is an appropriate way to speak to me. And so I think it's going to be important for us to get another person in this conversation, both for to make sure I'm really hearing you, and also so that you hear me, not attacking you back or powering over you, but also just drawing a boundary of like, I'm not going to be spoken to in that way. So those are just the kind of things. And if it's a really intense upcoming thing and you just don't know if you're going to be heard, another person or two in the room is always a good idea, particularly in leadership.
I think that's huge.
It is.
And I always really encourage my husband to have someone on staff that has deep trust.
Yes.
So that as people recount, maybe it's very often that people will receive something in the moment in the office and give it a day or two to sour.
Yes.
And the story becomes very different. So I think having that accountability of there were other people in the room that have deep trust in these leadership circles.
Yeah, that's right. And I trust them enough to say, you're welcome to call me out on things. This is a really important, you probably know this, but like if 10 people watch an accident, there are 10 different stories about how it happened. Like if you're thinking, well, humanity there's somebody in the room that's just totally objective. Never is there someone in the room totally objective. And if a person's already triggered, angry, hurt, accusatory, in the moment, they may be able to calm down in the room. But like you say, as it sours, they actually don't remember, literally do not remember what was said the way it was said. And so having someone be able to come back and say, no, that's exactly what we said.
I love that you're addressing kind of the false humility. I think that can be really hard in the church. Even we tend to dominate or be a doormat, and
That's right.
There is the way of Christ. What if there is a church member or someone within the organization that is repetitively maybe toxic or abusive? I know there's times where Jesus, he actually did walk away.
Right, yeah.
How do you discern how to handle that with humility, but with the wisdom it requires to protect everyone?
So it matters to me whether or not the person is kind of a consciously combative person, or whether the person is just like, maybe they have something in their personal life that's going on. They have this particular things haven't gone well in their area. They have felt they don't connect well with their supervisor. They've had some past experiences. They're whatever. So the humility, empathy, and curiosity to actually understand what's going on is really important, and to be able to approach the person and to be able to offer two things. I love, care, and support you, and I want you to succeed. Success means changes in these behaviors. Love, care, support never changes. You got it. You got it from me. And if you want to grow, you can. This actually could endanger your work. This could endanger your role. This could endanger your future, because these things are changes we have to make. And most people in that will either say, okay, maybe this isn't the right time. I can remember conversations where someone said, you're right. I think I've come to the end. I don't know what to do, right? Or sometimes it's, thank you for that. I'm going to work on that and grow that. And then every now and then, I think it's rarer in organizations that are faith-based, but it's there. So let me say, it happens in every organization. And it happens in the marketplace, it happens everywhere, but it's more painful in the faith-based organization.
It is,
right? So when it does happen, it stings really bad for everyone. And clearest kind. Boundaries and expectations. Relationships are always about expectations. Get the expectations clear with one another. Write them down. Revisit them. Give feedback on progress, or so that if I were to come one day and say, "Hey, I need to talk with you," and say this isn't working, you might not agree with it, but you'd know why I said that.
Clear.
You'd know why I said that. And mistakes that I have made is when I have allowed, out of anxiety or not moving towards things, let things get to the point where it's too late to have those conversations, and it never goes well. So, opportunity for growth and change with clarity and support and challenge, and then some level of continuing to engage, because again, when we move towards people, the boundaries, the expectations, the responsibilities do not change, but neither does our humility, empathy, and curiosity. And that is mature leadership, when you can bring both of those things in the room. And Audra, I think that takes a long time to learn. I don't think any of us are born with that. I don't think we're natural at it. And I think that that's a part of a journey for a leader.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the intentionality of your other principles. If we don't know our own story,
yes,
we can't really engage people in the story that they're in as well. And what about the leader who, maybe speaking from personal experience, those hard conversations happen, that conflict happened, and you engaged it the right way, you're doing the right things, but that conversation replays in your head, or maybe it eats away at your heart.
So I'm going to do it in two levels. One, when you loop a conversation, either before you get in the conversation or after the conversation, that's your anxiety.
That's great.
And if it's before the conversation, release it to the Lord. Like I'm going to stop playing this out. I'm not thinking ahead to prepare myself. I'm looping because I'm so anxious, and the anxiety is the issue, not the conversation. So I need to bring that back to the Lord, use our earlier principles, right? When it's after, when it didn't go well, and you find yourself just replaying over and over again, why am I replaying this? Being curious, having someone help you. Am I replaying this because I think, well, if I just done this right, everything would have worked, which is not true. Most conversations, I mean, if you get up and start screaming at somebody, walk out of the room, name call, that's probably something you need to go back and confess. But likely, if it just didn't go well, it's probably not anything did anybody wrong. You're just not, it's not happening. And that sometimes is just letting go of that, the perfectionism or the false sense that the false sense that I'm supposed to be God of these conversations, because I'm not. Because sometimes when Paul and Barnabas separated and they had a sharp disagreement, it was for the kingdom purposes, their redemptive journeys, and they came back together at one point. That's okay. That's okay. Another thing to do, though, is sometimes you just got to grieve.
Yeah. I always see that when I begin rehearsing conversations or replaying them, or I wish I would have said this, I try to pause and let that be an invitation to start talking to the Father. Like if I'm talking to a person in my mind,
that's great language.
It's a great invitation to stop and be like, this is something that I need to bring to the Lord in prayer.
And that's the release. That's and so if you've been learning these surrendered postures we've been talking about, and you get to this place, to your point where we begin, you get to this place, you're able to access this more. And when you get to these places and you do loop and you do get anxious, or all the self-talk can become toxic, really become toxic. Like, as you said, it's like, let's return back to the surrender. And this is, again, why we practice these things. We learn these things. We grow in these things in community. We grow in these things in leadership, because it just allows us to build that muscle over time, that we have access to that when we need it.
Yeah, and I love your language. You talk about how the maturity of a leader can impact the organization and vice versa. So unpack that for us.
Well, it goes back to some of the conversations we've had earlier. Your internal culture becomes your external culture. It's after about maybe 8 or 10 years, your strengths and weaknesses are fully embedded in your organization, and that's scary. Like, because then you get to. I remember. When my daughter Jessica was about 2, and my wife said something to me, and I just got so angry at her, and I just walked by a door and just kicked it. Just kicked it hard. And Jessica was in the hallway. She came by and she kicked the door and said, "Like Daddy."
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Kids are so refined.
yeah. Talk about humility. Oh, my word, Audra.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's very humbling as a leader to look out and say, okay, all those things, that email or that note or that gift I received because somebody said, you've just made such a difference in my life. That, thank the Lord for that. But if I look at some of the weaknesses, it's one of the reasons leaders get intolerant of some things in their organization. Sometimes it's other people's immaturity and sin. Sometimes, Audra, it's because it looks like yourself too much. And so the humility of like, hey, I helped create that. Now, I don't actually I've done that before. I've looked at I was lead pastor 22 years, and I could look at it and think, well, that just looks just like me, and not in a good way. So I want to address it, but I want to start by addressing it internally. If I start working on it, then I gain the language and the strength, humility, empathy to be able to, and so I can enter into that. So let me build on that one more layer, all right? If you really want to be good at humility and empathy and curiosity in your conversations, decisions, organization, practice it on yourself.
Oh, man, you got us, Rick.
Yeah, that's kind of your mic drop moment of the podcast, isn't it? You actually have to practice on yourself. So the humility to move towards yourself with, here's the truth about who I am. And the truth about who I am, Audra, is I could not possibly at 64, 40 years in, lead an organization and not make somewhat of a mess. I can't. Would God use it redemptively? 100%. Have I seen him do it over and over again? 100%. But I can't, Audra. I can't not recreate some mess. And so to move with humility towards myself and understanding that all I can do is be faithful by grace and open and surrendered, right? And empathy for leaders need to have empathy for themselves because sometimes nobody else does.
That is so true.
And so, you know what? You're put in a hard spot here and you don't know what to do. And your Father God is not, tapping the waiting on, when are you going to get this right? When are you going to get this right? He's like, hey, it's an invitation to give ourselves grace. And when we're practicing empathy with ourselves and somebody comes and say, hey, you really hurt me when you said that, you're able to hear it. And if it's true, you can say, yeah, I get that. I did. And I'm sorry. But it's not like some kind of like beat yourself up or, self-mutilation emotionally. It's just like, well, yeah, I did.
That's good. And I think it's a reminder we're forgetful people and we have to constantly be reminding ourselves of truth. We have to constantly be recentering, reframing. And
constantly.
I think the encouragement in this is go back to the earlier principles. It's not a one and done. We are going to have to, in every season, revisit them, maybe even at a deeper level.
Absolutely.
But that, I think, is the beauty of what we're building here, is we're getting to see the outward fruit of all the work we've done underneath.
Yeah, it's not a ladder. It's a way. It's a way of. And the sequential is not like step one, leave it behind. Step two, it's first things, right? Leadership is worship. The first things, secure love of the Father, first things. And we want to come back. And you're 100% right. You'll come back to that over and over again. And the healthiest version of yourself is always going to be the future version of yourself. And is that not a wonderful way to think? But if we don't practice these things, the future self might not be our healthiest version. And that is where I feel like so much gets lost in the vitality of the leader and the organizations that are being led.
This has been so good.
I've loved this conversation.
I love this episode. So as we think through practical steps for our leaders today, what would you encourage them to do?
Pay attention, one, just how are you handling conflict decisions? What's going on? Where's your base of operation coming from? Is it coming from the secure work of the Father? What are you learning about that? Ask people that you work with, that you trust, that you build a relationship with, ask them every now and then, what's it like to sit on the other side of the table for me as a leader? And I want you to tell me the truth. Yeah. That kind of openness to learn and grow and the humility of like, I know I've still got ways to grow. Having a one or two trusted people in your life where you can go to and say, this is like, just like I did yesterday, like this was really going to sting and I don't know quite what to do with this. And so can I just share this with you? You're the one person that knows me well enough who could say, no, call me out, right? And creating the space, Audra, to not just drive things. all the time. Leaders were trigger happy. We was like, go, do this. Just sometimes we've just got to pause and ask ourselves the question, what culture inside of me is creating, what's the culture outside of me, and what does that tell me about the culture inside of me when it comes to humility and empathy and curiosity?
So good. Would you mind closing
I'd
us
love
out
to do
with
that.
prayer?
I love that. Lord Jesus, we thank you for who you are. Your humility, which the scriptures just celebrate, and even in Philippians 2, the hymn of worship of your choice to humble yourself and take the form of a servant, even to the point of becoming obedient on a cross. But we thank you for your empathy, that you regarded us in our flesh, in our temporariness, in our weakness, in our humanity. You regarded us and then entered into that space with us. It's the ultimate empathic act when the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God takes on human flesh and incarnates to be with us, Emmanuel. And Lord, I just love the way as a teacher you ask so many questions. And it's not because you didn't have access to knowledge, it's because you wanted to experience with the person, learning them and them learning them being with you as you learned them. And so, Lord, I'd ask that for our leaders who are listening, who are participating in learning the pathway of redemptive leadership by reframing your mindset, or reimagining your leadership through a reframed mindset. Lord, I pray that leaders would be at peace. Just give them a shalom in who they are and who they are in you, that makes it secure and safe and possible to do these things, that makes failure and struggle in these areas a normal part of the growth of the leader. And Lord, remind us that our people don't actually need us to get it right all the time. They need to see what happens when we don't get it right. And sometimes our failure or our struggle in these areas is the perfect teachable moment to help our people understand how they access grace in these places in themselves. So Lord, I pray leaders not shy away from discovering that people aren't experiencing these things in some places in them, and embrace that as an opportunity for your redemptive work in their lives, in their community, and their organization. We thank you, as Audra said, we're always learning, and we don't have to reverse engineer this later in life if we would be willing, just on the front end, to be embraced by you and your humility, empathy, and curiosity, so that we might embrace others with those same qualities of you in us. And we thank you for the Spirit who searches and knows and speaks and guides and convicts and empowers and transforms. Thank you that we don't do this on our own. It's too much for us to do on our own. We can mimic the behavior, but the transformation is from you. So we yield ourselves to whatever way you might want to transform us. In Jesus' glorious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you on the next episode.